Hey everybody, welcome to TakeStock Live. Hope you're doing well and happy. This is Sam Evans with you, presented to you by stockability.com. Today's date is September 25th. I took a break last week on vacation, and I left things very comfortably in the hands of my good buddy and partner Daniel Bustamante. It was a great interview on the show last week as well. I actually tuned in, so even though I was away with my family, I couldn't help myself but still tune in. I absolutely loved seeing that. Just a little bit about, what goes on, in the life of a student. And I've been working with the students ever since I've been back and so on. And got an interview coming up next week as well with another student of ours, a guy called Doug, who's going to be talking to you a little bit about his background and what he's been doing, obviously, in the world of trading and investing too. So more of that to come later. But, for this week's show, I tell you, I always like to talk about the market, looking at the market and how it is. It has been tricky, to say the least. Definitely tricky, to say the least. And I would say on here that sometimes there's just not the perfect setup. Everything doesn't just work out as we hope it's going to work out. And Dan and I have been talking a little bit about this, and we thought to ourselves, why not on the subject of the show, this week on here, just talk a little bit about that. Talk about what we think about the market, pull up some charts, have a natter about it all. No, it's a very British word. And just talk about, obviously, what we think is going on in the world of the markets right now and how to deal with it. Because, you can have the best laid plan. Everything can just be fantastic, what you're looking at in the market. But then, sometimes the market wants to be irrational, and you have to have a plan around that and dealing with that as well. So we thought it'd be quite fun on the show to, get into that, talking about that, and seeing basically about what we're doing personally, to deal with it, how we're approaching the market, pull up some charts, have a little chat about that. Because if you're feeling a little bit dumbfounded about it all, that's absolutely fine. We did a trading session this morning, and it was there's not a lot out there. But that doesn't mean just because the stock market doesn't have the opportunities, it doesn't mean that there's not other opportunities out there as well. So we're going to also get into that. And obviously a regular feature on the show is Your Call, My Put, where Dan and I put our own kind of analysis on and spin on things as well, to talk a little bit about what we're seeing on here. So I wanted to bring him up right now as well, but my colleague Dan, he should actually be, Dan should actually be on the line right now as well. So I'm going to just kind of bring him in and just see if he's there. You there, Dan? How's it going?
Hey, can you hear me?
Hey, can you hear me? Absolutely. Got you loud and clear. How's it going for you, my friend? I mean, we were talking, weren't we, a couple of days ago, and saying, what are we going to talk about this week? I mean, the markets are fun, and there's always stuff to talk about. But, I mean, the market, I think you can talk about the lack of things going on in the market just as much as you can talk about the things that are going on in the market right now. How you been finding it over this last week? Because we've had volatility, and there's been opportunity, but, I mean, I don't think it's been clear. What are your thoughts on that?
So it's been really tough to figure out. So obviously the election's 4 weeks away. So it's really tough to understand the portfolio positioning that's going to happen, and there's going to be a big move for sure. Regardless, there's going to be a big move whoever wins. So it's really hard right now to position trade anything, which means I'm holding things for 2, 3, 4 weeks. A lot of these moves where you're getting really, really strong sell-offs, but then the volume dies up at the lows and it bounces. Or today we got this I didn't trade, but I saw it a little squeeze, but it's a fake squeeze. So it's really tough to hold positions overnight. It's just it's a little strange, but that's the markets, right? It's not like this is a usual thing for us that we deal with year in and year out. So it's just a strange market right now. I think the interesting thing is the VIX and volatility, the curve there. I think everyone's pre-hedged. So basically what that means for those of you that are new to markets is a lot of smart monies are hedging out downside risk of the markets for the election. So the movement, and that's really weird. You mentioned the other day where NASDAQ selling off and Russell's rallying, and there's just a lot of dislocation in the market. Even when we sold off earlier this week, bonds didn't do anything. Bonds just sat there with no bid, which is strange. So I don't think there's a lot of fear in the market. Just really there's something underlying that's going to happen again, like we saw in March. There's going to be a big move, and you can feel it with the different correlations. So yeah.
So thinking about this on here as well, we talked about, you were just saying about the correlations. I mean, so you've got the four major indexes, right? So we've got the S&P 500, we've got the NASDAQ, we've got the Russell, and obviously we've got the good old Dow Jones as well. One of the things I've been noticing is, generally, I'm talking in general market terms, you see all of the indexes, doing the same thing. And we can pull up some charts and take a look at this in just a sec. But you see all the indexes typically doing the same thing. But we're seeing kind of like a divergence between them a little bit right now, Dan. You know, we're seeing that one's pulling one way, one's pulling another way. And some of the students have been asking me, you know, what do you make of that? You know, and personally, when I look at it, I'm like, well, you know, I don't know whether it's advanced arbitrage going on here as well. You know, I've always found that the Russell as a 2000, mid-cap stocks always gives you a little bit more of an idea of, you know, what the true, you know, working man's market is under the big corporate America and stuff. But, you know, and I try not to get too caught up in the why things are happening. I try to more react to what is happening, you know, rather than, because you can drive yourself nuts of, well, why is that happening? Who cares? How are you making most of it? But when you see that kind of, you know, those indexes pulling in different directions, you know, what do you make of that, Dan, yourself? I mean, because I know how I look at it.
Look, number one, it makes me nervous, right? Because there's no question. Like I'm looking, it's bothersome because like earlier this week, and the market looks like it wants to press lower, and like I want to stay short, and I'm like net short right now, but I'm like worried that, you know, watching this like squeeze today, that you got to stay convicted. So it's tough to sit back and put on any conviction based ideas. And what I mean by that is, like, you put an idea and I want to stick with it for a week or 10 days, like max 10 days. There's not really any conviction I see. The only conviction idea that I have really is like long natural gas is a cyclical trade. I don't want to look at, but like right now, it's just, you know, it's tough to stay short. It's tough to get long. Like, it's just, there's a lot of indirection or misdirection. And even with the long trades, they're like 3 hours and the trade's over. So, right, basically, if you look at the large time frame, pressure's lower, but in the small time, we're just in a range. We keep just like rallying hard into a level, failing, rallying. It's just like we should break down lower. But yeah, it's interesting. So
When you say you're more of a position kind of trader, for somebody who's like looking at the show for the first time, you know, how would you class like a position trade, you know, versus, you know, like a short term like day trade? Because I mean, I like to do the short term stuff. You know, I've got things in the market right now, orders in the market. I'm just looking at charts, you know, as we speak. Although I will say, while I've got orders in the market, nothing is actually triggered yet, because, you know, I also like to be, you know, pretty ruthless about that. But, you know, what for you is kind of like is there an ideal length of time? You know, because obviously with these kind of choppy conditions you've got right now, holding for too long anything is not really giving you any kind of real profits to fruition. So, you know, in your ideal world, what typically is that kind of duration of time that you like to hold for, if you had to, like, you know, cherry pick it?
yeah. So this week we had the wealth class, and I was trying to get across this idea of like that you have to like put on different positions based on time and size in the portfolio, because across the board it's a very and I'm not saying I'm sophisticated, so don't take it that way, but like it's just a non-sophisticated way to trade, where like every idea is like, oh, it's a 5-minute trade or a 2-hour trade or one day, or like the typical approach is like, the other day I was talking to someone like, well, I'm long Nicola and I've been holding it forever. And it's like, some people have the mindset where they buy a stock and they want to hold it forever because they think they're going to retire. Like, that's never going to, I mean, it might work, but it just typically doesn't, right? So position trading, I would say, is like anywhere from like 2 to like 10 days, where I try to put something on and like get a larger price move on something. So that's that. But I switch back and forth from like position trading, like 2 to 10 day time frames, to like, I don't know, short Nicola stock for 3 weeks. I thought that would take like 8 months, but it worked out faster than I thought. But there's situations where, like, yesterday I was short Zoom, right? So I shorted Zoom for like 2 hours yesterday. So you have to pick your spots. And I think the good thing about, if you're like new to trading, or people are new to trading, you can't just take one strategy. People are always used to like, I just do one thing. And I'm not saying it's wrong, but you need to have, I like to have skin, rather, like a day trade position on a long-term position that might be 6 months, and something that's like 10 days. So like, there's always capital at work, and you have to differentiate. I'm not a big fan of the day trade stuff anymore like I used to be. I like short-term options, and a lot of the moves that happened, at least this week, where like Zoom, it sold off like 20 some points yesterday. You can't even stick overnight. Like, I wanted to stay short, but you can't stay short. So it's just tough. So yeah.
You know, you talk about that actually, Dan, you know, and, you know, short-term options, they are a great way, because it's very easy, isn't it, to just get chopped to pieces, you know, with the kind of day trading, when you're in and out side of things as well. It can get it can get challenging. It can get really, really hard for somebody who, doesn't know what they're doing. But again, you mentioned having a few different tools in the bag, right? So, while I don't think there's one strategy that literally fits every scenario, I think, you've got to have different plays, different techniques and so on. I feel like I'm more of a collection or a collection of strategies is maybe better, having a few different tools up your sleeve would be better, but again, I personally probably use maybe, I don't know, 3-4 different approaches to the market, but they're all very simple, and then pick them, depending on the market conditions. I think another way around is, and again, we'll go look at some charts, and I'd love to just get on here rather than just gas about it, because we are limited on time. But, I also think, this is a great time to be looking at other asset classes as well. I know you're not big in the world of foreign exchange, but there's been some fantastic moves over the last couple of weeks on the foreign exchange, which is very low risk, very easy maintenance, 24 hours a day. So I've just been kind of looking at that stuff, and really kind of giving myself a little bit more time to work on that. What are your thoughts on like branching out and looking at different vehicles beyond just stocks?
Um, I mean, you trade FX. I don't really trade FX at all, so it's tough to chime in on that. I mean, I'm long natural gas through the UNG ETF and like one natural gas related. It's a high correlation to natural gas, uh, an equity. So I'm not against that. I like that idea really, really well. I wanted to get short lumber recently, but I couldn't find a way to execute the idea, so I stayed away from that. Um, but yeah, I'm not against it. I think, I mean, right now right now I don't really want to mess with the futures markets just because I just don't have the energy right now. And you know how it is, like futures trading takes a lot of energy. I just don't have the energy right now to sit down and like have the focus to sit there and put on size and try to trade futures right now. So in that regard, that's what I probably would go and do. But I think like natural gas I like right now, like a lot. So
I think one of the things I enjoy about the forex market is great for somebody small, who wants to start in with a small account as well to do it. One of the things I love is I don't have to worry about gaps every single weekend as well. Yeah, so every single day. Yeah, the only time the forex market can actually gap is between a Friday close and a Sunday open, which means you get a whole lot more. I don't know, better sleep nights of sleeping. I don't like holding outright stocks overnight. That's why again I love options. These different vehicles that Dan and I are talking about, options, forex, futures. A lot of them are safer ways to participate in the market over longer durations of time as well. But again, I mean, you'll also find it seems to me, and as I've got to know you over the years and worked with you and formed a stockability, you are relaxed about it. I think you've learned, obviously, probably the hard way that, chasing the market and just trying to find trades when the conditions aren't optimal is one of the worst things you can do. And then we have a saying back in London, you wait for a bus and then they all come along at once, right? And I think that happens in the market, right? Yeah. You wait forever and then the opportunity, bang, it just comes. And I think that's why it's so important to be patient right now, because things could be setting up. And rather than keep getting in, getting out, getting in, getting out, you can end up getting to this scenario of a death by 1,000 cuts, repeated stop outs, being taken out all the time as well. I feel like with the Forex, longer term trading, especially with the options, it kind of forces you to be a little bit more selective. Wouldn't you agree?
yeah, because look, FX and Forex. Is there like a feedback on this?
I'm not getting any feedback right
Okay.
now.
Um, yeah, I'm getting a little bit. I don't know what's going on, but that's fine. So look, here's my idea with that. Even with futures, like I don't even day trade them anymore because I just don't want to. Like it's just not. It's annoying to me personally to have to sit there every morning and like today I posted something like I don't even want to get long even though we rallied, but like people see that and like, oh well, there was a long today, but it's like Can you see it now?
Yeah, so, okay, let's bring it up, and I will share this on the full screen on here, and we can go full screen on this. And I will literally just bring this up, and let's take a look. There we go. Yep, seeing your screens on here. Awesome. All right, so show us what you're looking at then.
So I'm long natural gas, not in this portfolio, but another one pretty heavy. Let me go through. Let's actually just see what's going on today. There's nothing of any significance. Nobody's really running anything big. So I'm long this. It had the actual natural gas futures had a really good run this week. If you trade natty gas, that move was a widowmaker move. So I'm long natural gas in a position with this, and I have a position in an equity that has a high correlation to it. Ruger, I like this thing, but again, like it keeps trying to break above 65. We've kind of tagged it again. It's not making my P&L look great right now, but again, I'm trying to just position trade this thing and not, panic out of it. So I like the gun stocks headed into October. I just think it's a fundamental trade too, but technically I really like this. So that's what I've been watching there. I looked at VSGO, which is kind of related to that sector. I actually got into this week and stopped out of it pretty quickly. So in addition to that, aside from like long-term positions, there's not really much else I'm super keen on. I just can't get a real feel on whether this market wants to roll. And in fact, while we're sitting here, let's just take a look and see what this NASDAQ is doing. It's got to be up, right? Yeah, there it is. Super annoying. I wish this thing would just roll over. Honestly. So yeah, that's what I'm looking at there. I mean, it's hard to establish like new positions from a risk standpoint ahead of the election, because if it goes one, and again, I don't have a dog in the fight. If it goes one way or another, you're going to see a pretty large move in the markets. I don't think it's going to be a move to the upside, to be honest. So it's hard to establish new longs. So like right now, I just have the natural gas longs, which again shouldn't be affected. Like you talked about getting out of equity. So right now, I want to be out of equity risk, and I want to be in like commodity risk. So commodity risk long natural gas makes sense to me cyclically. Also technically, the chart backed it up, so that looks good to me from that perspective. But again, I talked about it this week in class. When you look at like commodity plays, and I have a friend of mine who actually was an old analyst at the old company. He was looking at stocks for me that had a high correlation, so I put on a high correlation natural gas. So I put on another equity long in natural gas. So, but overall, I'm pretty short the market, and just to put it out there, I'm short the Nasdaq through like in the money options, not leap put options, like 9 months out put options. I'm short Netflix pretty heavy. I'm short Apple. I know people don't like to hear that, but I am.
Hey, listen, what goes up must come down, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. So like, and I want to talk about it. I can give some insight to this, and I was trying to explain it.
please
this week.
do, yeah.
Like, it, you get certain situations in the markets where they set up like really asymmetric risk to reward scenarios where like you're going to get like a 1-2 standard deviation move. And when those things happen, like March or that rally off the lows in April, you can make like a fat sum of money, but you can also lose. So there's a time where like I want to put on a lot of risk, and I'm just saying it, like I want to swing for the fence. And there's a time where like I'm just like hitting for singles, like a day trade for this, a day like $500 there, $100 there, like you're just grinding it out. I think right now there's a scenario where you can hit it out of the park. So that's why I'm trying to position so heavy short. And if I'm wrong, I'm going to lose money, obviously. Am I going to be mad about it? Yeah, but I'll be more mad if I didn't put this risk on and it tanks and I miss out on it. So
Right.
I actually did that in March. So you remember, Ophir, we were talking about it. So
Yeah,
we were short, right? So I was like heavy short the Qs and a whole bunch of names. And because we saw the news out of Wuhan, right? And it wasn't breaking. I'm like, why is the market not breaking? It's not breaking. And like the news started to hit the news cycle here, and we started to sell off. We had like an 800-point down day. The next day we were down. I was like, you know what? Like this is it. So I started covering shorts. And then next week was that week where like oil went negative, and the whole market imploded, and I'm just like, Jesus, like I missed out like on a huge payday. So this time I don't want to miss it.
No,
So
absolutely,
yeah, that's what I'm
absolutely.
looking at there. From the perspective of a few other things too, I just don't see a lot of like Zoom. I was short, um, and I'm not short this yet. I'm gonna probably get short this, and it goes against like I guess like traditional thinking that's just vertical. And I think if the market has a disappointment with this election, you're going to see a huge sell off in these markets. And I could be wrong on timing, so that's why I've kind of I'll just kind of give like a one-on-one options lesson. If you want to like look at trades, or if I ever look at something that's long-term duration, I always end up paying more for the option, like whether it's in the money, 8 months out, 9 months out. So they tend to be expensive costs, whatever that's defined as. But it gives me more time to be wrong or right. So right now, that's the way I've structured a lot of the ideas is they're more in the money options and options that are out, longer in time. So it is tough, sitting here watching like the market trade higher and you're like, I'm short, but you just have to kind of stay convicted. So I don't think people talk about that enough, like the behind the scene, like, if you're short something, um, how do you like sit through it? If you're long something and you believe in it, like when are you wrong? So
Right, exactly, exactly, and it's hard, isn't it? Especially when everyone else has got an opinion. But sometimes when you have the different opinion, that's when things really change and so on. So let's go back over to I'm going to screen share on here. Like we also people find that very interesting to look at it, and I got to say to you, at the end of the day, it's one of the reasons why I think a lot of the time over the years, I personally have tried to, if you like, move away from having too much of an opinion. It's a dangerous thing, wouldn't you say, Dan? Like having an opinion on stuff. I mean, especially when you've got other people, especially when you've got other people kind of
yeah,
like clicking in, and and I don't like to listen to it. I like to come up with a trade idea, and once I've got that trade idea, then sorry, Dan, I'm just lost your picture on here, buddy. Just kind of just get
the
your back.
face or what?
Let me just see where you are. No, just on here, just on my source. It just seems to have locked on you, so I can hear you, but I can't see. I just got you basically locked on here. Just give us a second, Dan, and let's get you back in on here. I think people would like to see you on this. Okay. All right, we can bring you back up on this way. This is fine. Let's bring you back up over here, and I will bring you back up this way. So just bear with me a second, Dan. Live broadcasting today, man. It's always been.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, here we go. No Dan on here. So, all right. So let me just do this. It seems that basically your live feeders. I can hear you just fine, but I can't see you at all. I've got just a still of you at the moment on here. So let's do this a different.
I'm gonna hang up and call you back. Is that
No,
easier?
it's fine. It's fine. What we'll do is we'll bring it back up like this, and there you go. Get some charts up and take a little look this particular way. So yeah, bring up your video again, buddy, and then we should be able to see you just fine. There you are. All right, got you back in. Got you back in here. So yeah, sorry Dan, as you're saying, an opinion a very dangerous thing to have. I think sometimes, wouldn't you agree? When somebody else is, how can I put it? News can be very seductive. A friend, you run a trading idea by somebody else, and you've always got somebody else's kind of opinion on that. Now, how do you deal with that? When so many people have different opinions.
I ignore all of because every time I listen, look, somebody was talking about Oracle this week, a good friend of mine. As I started looking at it, and I put a real small position. I was down like a quick like $1,200. I'm just like, why did I mess with this? So normally I ignore honestly all of it. I just don't pay attention to anybody's idea. So this week I got access to this IBD 50 like swing trading thing, and it's not that I'm going to take their ideas. I want access to more like a set of equities I never look at. So I pretty much stick to the same sector of equities, but I want to look and see like what do they have in their idea. And
Right.
if I look at their analysis, it's not that I look at it, I'm like, oh, I trust this because I don't know who they are, but I just want to look and see, if it gives me a different idea, like a light bulb goes off that I could, put something on. So I really don't listen to anything at all. I mean, I don't have CNBC on. I don't read. Like I read certain reports. I post them in our room. from like Gavical
Sure.
or like other stuff that we get. But like I don't really read anything that I'm super like about markets. It's just not. It's all a distraction, and it messes up your whole thesis for a trade. And if it gets in your head, like you start second guessing trades or positions, and then you're in trouble. So like Nicola is a good example of this, honestly. So when I was short, and this is the hardest thing about trading, you have P&L like on your book.
Yeah.
I was short, we had that first drop, and I was like up pretty decently. And then like something happened where we rallied, and I'm like, this is stupid. Like, why is this rallying, right? And I'm like sitting there, and you have like an internal discussion, like, well, should I get rid of this? Should I keep this? Should I add to it? Like, and you have to stay convicted. And I was like, I'm not gonna. This has to go lower. I've got to like stick with this, and you have to constantly like redo the analysis and go back. Like, did I miss on this? Like, did I miss a price level? Is the fundamental side of this wrong? Like, where's the rest of the indices? Um, so yeah, I really try to ignore a lot of it, but there was like headlines that kind of came out that kind of got to me that I ignore. The more and more I read outside stuff, the more it messes with like everything. I mean, seriously,
Yeah, no. And also, it's hard sometimes when you respect somebody else's opinion, isn't it? And they have they have their opinion, and you have your opinion. I mean, like even us, we rarely actually, we work together every day, yet we rarely talk about what the other one's doing. Do we? I think that once you have that idea of that trade, it's so important to follow it through. Some of the people I've respected the most in the world, I've listened to them, and they've had the opposite opinion to me. And I've ended up still following through, and I've got it right and they've got it wrong, or they've talked me out of a trade. And it's not because anyone's trying to put you down. It's not because anyone's trying to hurt you. It's just the market will do what the market's going to do, and that's why I feel the plan is always the most important thing. I don't really care for too many people's opinions. I care for the market's opinion. To me, that's the only one that matters, right? That was drilled into me a long time ago.
Yeah, I mean, look, the charts are quantitative analysis priced in some sense. Like there's still behind the scenes analysis you got to do. That's not just chart work. Like position sizing risk, portfolio risk. Like there's a lot of that stuff, which I think let's be honest about it, like nobody does. There's no position sizing strategy. There's no like profit strategy. That's just a chart. And I buy, sell. So there's a lot additional that goes into it, but most of the analysis is typically in the charts. And obviously you get it wrong. Like I hope I'm not wrong on this QQQ short. I don't think I'm wrong. I hope the market doesn't squeeze on me. I hope I'm not wrong on Apple short. I hope that the thesis that the market's going to de-risk here into October is correct. But you got to stick with it. Like that's the hardest thing is like I'm trying to stick with this short and not like panic out. Because I've literally done this before, and it's the worst thing where like I put a trade on and I keep second guessing. I take out and it does what I need it to do.
Right.
It's the worst thing to happen, and so yeah, hopefully I can get it right this next 2-3 weeks.
Absolutely. So. And I pull the Apple chart up right now for everybody so they can actually see it, and we're looking at it, and when you look at this Apple chart and you can see it, it's such a ton of like wide open space, just below us on here, for this market to push particularly lower on this, and I can see it and so on as well. I think there'll be another buying opportunity. I think it was down on here. We were talking about it around the $100 mark as well. But like right now, there's some good short opportunity on that. And again, go on, buddy.
On the dollar, there's a short opportunity.
No, I'm saying I'm looking at Apple right now, just looking at the Apple charts. And I can see, the way that thing's run. I mean, look, what do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 months of upward momentum. And what the word I use to describe that is unsustainable, right? And, that's the outlook. But again, I think once you take your trade, you stick to it. And one of the other ones I've been looking at quite a lot, and let's just move this over to here. We've been talking about this over the last few weeks, is the dollar. I got a little bit of heat on the dollar. This was, I think, on our Your Put My Call when we were talking about it. It was on the very, very first show. My call was on the dollar. Look at it now. I mean, right? I've been in that room talking about the dollar a lot. That was my one. And I look at this month that we've had so far. Fantastic. Look at this week. Now, I look at this weekly chart right now, and what I'm seeing on this weekly chart here. I mean, there's not a whole lot to stop it getting up to. Let's just take a look at the price level so we've got it. I mean, looking at this right now, I would not be surprised this thing getting up to about 96 right now.
Or the currency?
On the dollar itself, been bullish on the dollar, just by the pure price action. And, I've been kind of sticking to my guns on that lately. And, it's been driven a lot of what I've been looking at in the currency market, because of that. because it's put me on with a long bias towards the Canadian dollar, a short bias towards the pound, a short bias towards the euro as well. But just was waiting for that to turn, because like everything, nothing goes in a straight line forever. And I think people forget about that. And when I was reading that trading idea by people about, being more bullish on the dollar, expecting, people are like, are you crazy? Look at the downtrend it's in. Now, I'm not saying it's going all the way back up to 100 necessarily, but I'm seeing, $96, $98 on a push to here as well at the moment. And that's not because of anything fundamental. I'm not saying suddenly, the dollar's changed. But right now, it's a good time to be a buyer of the dollar and a good time to sell something else. And on alternative investments, as we've seen that push in the dollar to the upside, some of the benefits I've seen is in the, this sell-off here on the pound. We've had a great little run off of the pound, and on the euro itself. I mean, take a look since that dollar rolled off. Beautiful sell-off on the euro. I got to say right now, from what I'm seeing, this all the way down to, let's just kind of look at the numbers on here. Probably wouldn't be surprised to see the euro getting down to around 115, 114.50 on here in the coming weeks as well now. And that's been a good move. I mean, it's a great move. You've seen about a 4-cent sell-off, on the dollar and on the euro in just a couple of weeks on there. And I felt myself, instead of having to stress about these equity markets just not doing anything, here we are with currency markets that are doing plenty. And that's why I think, the multiple asset classes are such a powerful tool in here as well. And they go hand in hand. So, I still see a little bit more upside on the dollar. But let's talk about, we're coming towards the end of here. We always like to do my call, your put. I wanted to give you the choice today. Now, normally I've been the bullish, you've been the bearish range. You've got to do something other than Apple for us, Dan. So, because we talked a lot about that. What else have we got? Just a little one out there that it's our little game that we like to talk about and have a look at, isn't it? So, where are we at?
So I'm going to talk my book. So I want to be long Smith and Wesson. I don't want any fan mail or hate mail on this thing. It's just
give us a stock ticker on that one.
SWBI.
SW.
So Southwest, SW, then Bravo, India.
Oh yeah. Being more of a Forex and futures guy. SWBN, right, there you go.
I is in India.
Sorry, SWBI. There we are. Okay, so what's this one then? What are you saying about this, Dan? What's your call on this?
The long?
On the long side of things, okay. I mean, it's cheap. I'll give it that right now, relative to where it's been. What kind of price targets are you looking at on a long play? Is this something you're looking about right now? I've got to say, it started to show.
Long, so I'd like this. What was the highs? 22.
Yeah.
So I'd like to see 1920s print. I'd really like to hold this a little bit higher, but I think 1920s is what I'm after. Look, the election's going to affect this thing massively. There's going to be a huge move on this thing one way or another. I know people are like, oh, well, yeah, you got to pick a side while I'm long. So I just hope I hope we get up to those levels. So we'll see.
Nice. All right. So let's add that one on the books. What about me on the short side? I'm going to go out there and I'm going to bring up gold on here. I'm going to bring up gold.
Short. You're going to say short? I like that short.
I'm saying it not forever, but for now. For now.
5-day trade. I agree with you.
I'm seeing on this chart right now. I'm seeing on gold. I'm gonna just move you out of the way here on the scene, but again, this needs a pullback. I'm gonna make a call that I'm expecting about $1,820, between $1,800-$1,820. Nice opportunity to get it down to. I think this has got a good $40 to $60 move to the downside still in it at the moment. So I'm on the downside on that. I think that would, and again, because I'm seeing a little bit more upside on the US dollar right now, continued sell off in the pound, continued sell off there, all fundamentally lines up quite nicely for a short term play. But I would say I've not written gold off, Dan. I'm not writing gold off. No way.
Yeah.
I think it would be foolish to write gold off at this particular point.
Yeah.
Absolutely foolish. Well, Dan, I know you're busy and stuff. I thank you for joining me on the show next week. We're actually going to do a little interview, a double-header interview with Doug Whitmayer, so one of the students who we both work with right now, doing really, really well. So he's going to be joining us on the show next week. Really love it. I mean, we got a lot of feedback from last week's show when you did your student interview. I think it's great to see people putting into practice, what you're teaching them and so on, right? So
yeah, it's good to talk to them and see how they do. I mean, look, there's no better testament to what it takes from a when a student explains what they had to do to get to where they were versus like the instructor telling the student, I
Right.
think it's a different perspective people can take and they can use that. So yeah.
Looking forward to it. Well, thanks a lot, Dan. I'll let you go, my friend, and I'll wrap things up on here as well. And I'll see you next week, okay? Thank you so much for joining us. Excellent. So, on here, guys, as well, a good show. So, next week coming up on here, I had a few technical issues along the way, but thank you for bearing with us. I mean, this is the nature of live broadcasting. We'll have to see how the recording of this comes out. This will show Take Stock Live be posted up on our YouTube channel, where you can actually look at the recording of it as well. If you did come in and join the show live today, thank you so much for taking time out your busy schedule to do so as well, and deal with a few technical issues along the way as well. Like I say, it happens, but hopefully it didn't get in the way of the content as well. Gremlins in the works. It's probably not the first or the last time that this is ever going to happen. Okay, so on that subject as well, if you are looking for more information about what we get up to, so I'm going to leave right at the end of this broadcast here, just up our banner as well. You can visit us. Take Stock Live is brought to you by the Stockability team, stockability.com, where you can find out more about what we do there. And next week on our show, joining us at 12 noon, we're going to be joined by Doug Whitmayer, one of our students on a great guy, veteran himself, served the country, doing really good with his options trading, future trading. Actually, we were just talking about gold. He's actually one of those guys who's been trading and working with gold for quite some time and having some great success in that. So really good. And if you want any questions that you want to send in to us through the Facebook page, please just drop your comments and questions. Anything you guys would like to look at in the coming week would be great to have you on there. And obviously we can reach out and do that. But once again, guys, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to join us on the show. This has been Take Stock Live. I'm Sam Evans. Have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you all next week at the same time, 12 noon. Take care, everybody. God bless. Goodbye.